Hello and welcome. Today, we are cracking a classic SCMP problem. It's a big one. How in the world do you measure the performance of a not-for-profit organization? When making money isn't the #1 goal. We're going to do a deep dive into a case study that pits an NPO against a commercial company to really figure out what success looks like. Okay, so here's our roadmap. First, we'll tackle that core conflict, profit versus purpose. Then, I'll introduce you to your new best friend for NPO analysis, the value for money framework. After that, we'll put these ideas to the test with a head-to-head number crunch, and finally, we'll deliver the verdict. Let's get into it. All right, first things first, we have to get our heads around the fundamental difference here. Commercial businesses, they pretty much live and die by their profit margins. But not-for-profits, or NPOs, well, they're playing a completely different game. And that brings us to the million-dollar question, right? If an NPO's success is all about its social mission, its impact on the community, then our usual financial reports just don't cut it. We need a totally different set of tools to see if they're actually delivering on their promises. So to make this real, let's meet our two players. In one corner, we have Homelessness Services, or HS. They're a classic NPO driven by a mission to provide affordable housing. And in the other corner, Exclusive Services, or ES, a for-profit company in the exact same business. Now, you might be thinking, hey, that's comparing apples and oranges. And you're right. But sometimes comparing apples and oranges is the best way to understand what makes an apple an apple. So if we can't just look at the bottom line, what do we look at? Well, for NPOs, there's a specific framework called value for money, or VFM. And for your SCMP exams, you've got to know this inside and out. It's all about 3 key ideas: economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. Let's break them down. First up is economy. It's pretty simple, really. It just means spending less. Are you getting the resources you need, your staff, your supplies, your buildings, at the lowest possible cost? But, and this is crucial, without letting the quality drop. It's basically about being a smart shopper for the organization. Next, we have efficiency. This is all about spending well. It's a measure of productivity. You take all those things you bought economically, your inputs, and you ask, how much output are we getting? Are we turning employee hours into well-maintained homes as productively as possible? It's about getting the most bang for your buck. And finally, we have effectiveness, which is about spending wisely. And honestly, this is the most important one of the 3. It asks the big, searching question: are we actually making a difference? Are we achieving our mission? Because you know what? You could be super economical and incredibly efficient. But if you're not actually helping the people you set out to help, you've failed. That value for money trio is a fantastic start, but let's be real. For a charity, numbers on a spreadsheet never tell the whole story. To really get a feel for their performance, especially their effectiveness, we have to look at things that aren't so easy to count. For an organization like HS, the quality of their service is everything. I mean, think about it. Are the staff actually helpful? Are the homes safe and decent? Are people happy enough to stay there long term? You measure this stuff with things like tenant surveys, checking complaint logs, and looking at how many people renew their leases. And another huge one is flexibility. How quickly can the organization respond when things change? You can track this. You can measure the average wait time for a home to open up. Or how long does it take to get an emergency repair done? If a family's needs change and they need a bigger place, can HS make that happen? These are all concrete measures of flexibility. Okay, so we've talked about the softer side of things. Now let's get our hands dirty with some numbers. We're going to see how those VFM principles of economy and efficiency stack up when we compare the financial data of our NPO HS against the commercial firm ES. First on the chopping block, average employee cost per week per house. This is a pure economy measure. Here's the formula we're going to use. We take the total employee cost for the entire year, divide it by the number of houses they manage, and then divide that by 52. Why 52? Because it gives us a nice, simple weekly number we can easily compare. So where are we pulling these numbers from? The total employee cost comes straight out of the income expenditure statement in the case. For HS, that's 24 lakh. For ES, it's 38 lakh. The number of houses, 450 for HS, 200 for ES, that's in the operating data. Simple. And wow, once you run the numbers, the difference is just staggering. HS's employee cost comes out to just about 103 rupees per house per week. Yes, they're spending over 3 times that at 365 rupees. This tells us HS is incredibly economical with its staffing. They're managing way more houses with a much smaller total payroll. All right, next up, let's dig into the average day-to-day repair cost. Now, this metric is interesting because it hits both economy, the actual cost of the repairs, and efficiency, how well that money is being spent. The formula is basically the same: total running repair cost divided by the number of houses divided by 52 weeks. So again, we grab the data from the financials. HS spent almost 24 lakh on repairs for their 450 houses. ES, on the other hand, spent just over 6 lakh for their 200 houses. Okay, let's plug those into our formula and see what we get. Whoa. Okay, now here's a twist. ES is way cheaper on repairs, almost 40% cheaper. They're spending just 61 rupees per house, while HS is spending 102 rupees. So what's going on? The case study gives us a hint. ES probably has a fixed cost contract for all their repairs. That's a super smart business move. It means they have predictable costs and are protected from those nasty, expensive emergency calls. That's a huge lesson for HS right there. Okay, our final calculation is a massive indicator of efficiency. It's all about how well you're using your main asset, the houses. We're going to calculate the percentage of rent lost because of empty properties. Now listen closely to the formula. It's the total rent lost divided by the gross rent receivable. And what's that? It's the rent you actually collected plus the rent you lost from vacancies. And the data here tells a very clear story. HS lost over 18 lakh in potential rent because some of its properties were just sitting empty. And ES, a big fat zero. They had no vacancies at all, so they lost absolutely nothing. This is a major, major operational difference. When you do the math, it's a huge blow for HNS. They lost a full 15% of their potential income because of empty houses. Think about that. Their for-profit competitor in the same market has a 100% occupancy rate. This should be setting off alarm bells all over HNS headquarters. Are their homes in the wrong part of town? Are they the wrong size? This number doesn't give an answer, but it screams that there's a problem to solve. So, we've looked at the theory, we've crunched the numbers. What's the big takeaway here? What do you absolutely need to remember from all this? And this, right here, is the money shot. This is the main conclusion from the case. While comparing the NPO to a commercial company was really useful for spotting things like the repair costs, at the end of the day, it's not a fair fight. The best, most valuable insights for HSR are going to come from benchmarking themselves against other housing charities, organizations that share their mission and face similar challenges. And before we go, here is your formula flash for today. These are the 3 key calculations we use to pick apart the costs and efficiency of our organizations. Keep these in your back pocket. They are essential tools for any performance evaluation. So we'll leave you with this final thought. The real power of this kind of analysis isn't that it gives you all the answers. It's that it helps you ask much, much better questions. Seeing that 15% vacancy rate isn't the end of the story. It's the start of a really important conversation. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.